Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Pros and Politics Podcast, where we are polished and poised for greatness and impact. My name is Kahala, and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining us today as we delve into a topic that is near and dear to my heart, speech and language pathology, as we discuss SLPs, speech and language in the African American community, and children across America. And we have two very special guests who are also very near and dear to my heart. My two very best friends, Chasity Leddell and Christie Bogay-Potts. Welcome, best friends. That's my best friend. Welcome to Pearls and Banks. Thank you. I'm so excited to have y'all here. We've been working on this for a while.
Yes, we
Been working on this for a while, and you two are finally here. I love your t-shirt. Thanks. T-shirts,
Oh, Black speech pathologists matter.
yes, they do. Period. Matters to me, matters to moms and dads and guardians all over the world. And so thank you for coming on. So tell us really quickly, how do we know each other?
Well, we have known each other almost 30 years. We met in high school, Lincoln Senior High School, and we have been BFFs, soror, sister friends ever since.
And family.
And family.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And like you said, soror. So you all agree?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
We'll give your sorority and your chapter a shout out.
Gamma Omega, AKA.
That's right. That's right. And so one of us is a neon.
Me.
Chastity and Monica Johnson, who was here during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. They are Line's family and Line sisters. So it's just one big happy pink and green black girl magic. You know, we've been at this forever and we still together situation over here in front of the podcast.
Yes.
And so tell us about yourselves. So whoever wants to go first, y'all only a couple days apart. So you know if older wants to go first or the younger, but please tell us about Chastity. You want me to go first? You can go first.
Well, I'm a wife to an amazing man for 17 years now. I am a mother to an amazing 14-year-old. I am a speech language pathologist. I currently work in the schools in Ferguson, Florissant, Missouri. I have worked at several schools and skilled nursing facilities throughout St. Louis City and St. Louis County.
And how long have you been practicing?
I have been practicing for 19 years.
Yeah. So, very similar. So I'm married, and I have one daughter, Piper. She's a dancer, so I consider myself a dance mom.
Absolutely. A dance mom. Yeah. That's why she in town. A dance mom.
And I am also a speech language pathologist. I've been practicing for the same 19 years. Both my undergraduate and graduate degrees are in speech language pathology. And let's see, what else about me? I think that's it. Dance mom takes up like mostly all of my time. Yeah.
I understand. Her daughter is the most amazing dancer.
Yes, she is.
Oh, Pike.
Yes, she is.
And Christian is an amazing both academic and athlete, as we stated when his dad was here, because when we did Original Jets during our time celebrating Black business, that is her wonderful husband that she speaks of, and Christian, valedictorian and all of that. So they have two very amazing children, both of them. And, you know, you two have been a part of my life, like you said, for 30 years now. And so much of what you all have done for the last 19 years has impacted my life and the life of my family directly. as speech and language pathologists and subject matter experts, you all have helped my husband and I navigate the speech delay that Anthony had growing up. And so most people don't know, our oldest Anthony was diagnosed very early on, and it was you who told me, well, there's a birth to 3 program. I had no idea, our first baby. And I'm like, okay, well, he doesn't talk. And that was a very difficult time, a very uncertain time, because the pregnancy was great. And feel free to jump in at any point. The pregnancy was great because, well, did he go without oxygen during labor? There were so many questions that you all ask, and that, the ear people ask.
Yeah.
What are they called?
Audiologists.
There you go. And there have been no issues.
Right.
Very healthy pregnancy. I was young. I was in my 20s when I got pregnant. And I'm just trying to figure out why my baby doesn't talk. And it was very hard for me and for our family, but I knew that he needed help. And the two of y'all weren't going for nothing. They were not. A lot of people, we can talk about the stigma of getting help. A lot of people in the African-American community were like, okay, he'll grow out of it.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, faith without works is dead. So I can have all the faith in the world and pray and do everything I'm supposed to do. But it was the work that was needed to come alongside my faith.
Yeah.
So you all have been a part of that process the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it just like switched. And now look, it's been really good. So let's talk
Because he
about...
has amazing parents. Phenomenal parents. And you all did the work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So why speech pathology? Why did you choose that area?
Well, we were in college at Illinois State University, and we took like an undergraduate level elective, and I can't remember, it was like speech and language and like child development or something like that, and it was in this huge lecture hall. But anyway, the teacher was phenomenal, and the content was phenomenal, and that sort of like piqued our interest in speech language pathology. And so the class, I mean, it was just wonderful. It was like just a lot of things. We felt like, I definitely felt like I think I could see myself doing this, like helping people. But I must say, when I was in that early language or early childhood language class, I knew, I was like, I do think that I want to do this, but I don't know that I want to work with children. And so initially, the intent was that I would not work with kids, that I would only work with adults, but then that changed. So,
yeah. And same with me. Once I took that introductory course, I just became fascinated with the wide variety of disorders that we could treat and the variety of settings that we could work in. And so that's why I initially changed my major from biology to speech language pathology.
And you were saying initially, Chasity, that you weren't thinking about children, but both of you work in an academic setting.
Yes.
So and you treated my father at Barnes Jewish Hospital when my father had his aneurysm. So what led you all to and back to academia and children?
Well, honestly, I did a little bit of work in the hospital, but when the summers off, like I got a taste of that, and I was like,
real, that's right.
I was like, there's no going back. Like I like having the summers off. And so and especially when I had Piper, it just seemed like a logical choice to have my summer off when she has her summer off. So it just worked. And I do enjoy working with children. In college and in graduate school, I didn't think that I would. I was just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not. Yeah.
We were wild mothers. Like we were just footloose and fancy free. So, you don't always have that instinct or that nudge until you become a mother yourself, or you get into the setting where you are dealing with children.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I think I changed my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I actually started in early intervention from 0 to 3, and then I did 3 to 5. And so that was cool. But now I'm, in elementary setting, and I love it.
Yeah. And so with me, I've always wanted to be on the medical side of speech pathology. So I completed 2 internships, one at Bourne's Hospital and one at Children's Hospital, St. Louis Children's Hospital. And I wanted to be on the medical side, working with the swallowing disorders and the traumatic brain injuries. However, I've always had a passion for working with kids, for kids, period. Kids have always gravitated to me. I've always babysat my little cousins. And so I should have known that I would ultimately end up working with kids. And so, yeah.
And both of you are so good at what you do. Like, I can call them any time of day, any time of night, leading up until, he was blessed to no longer be, have an IEP. We'll never forget that day and how we cried when I called. And I was sitting and I'm at the Zoom meeting, and they're like, well, this is like, we really don't. And I'm like, what? And I couldn't believe it. So you all definitely 19 years later are at the absolute top of your fields and your level of expertise and understanding, because there's like I said, there's nothing that I can't call and ask, nothing that you all won't help with, nothing that you all won't suggest, even in talking to them. They're telling me how in high school, trying to get him adjusted, he can be better adjusted to make better grades based on the services that are provided through the state and federal government. So I know when I always talk about my village and down like, this woman got somebody. Your ears don't work if your vocal cord. Yes. And I have a wonderful family of people. So let's talk about what SLP, or speech and language pathologist, SLPs for short, what you all do. What did you say? Brain trauma, swallowing. I know you all deal with speech delays and stuttering. So that way because a lot of people may not know what you all do, and somebody might be listening that's like, oh my goodness, that is something that my child struggles with. And they're saying that's something that can be treated.
Yeah. So, with children in the school setting, we primarily work with kids with articulation impairment. So they may not be able to correctly produce, let's say, an R sound or an L sound. And then we also work with children who may have language impairments or language delays. So like with the younger kids, we like to say language delays, because the idea is that they will grow out of it. And then the older kids, they transition into like a language impairment. But the language part is we work with basically vocabulary and meaning, so semantics. And we also work with morphology and syntax, and then that would be like the grammar piece, phonological awareness. So that's that pre-reading or literacy piece. I don't do a lot with swallowing, but some SOPs in some school districts in some states do work with kids who have swallowing disorders. So there's that. Voice, I don't do a lot with voice in my job, but we can.
And
fluency. So fluency would be stuttering. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
And then in a hospital or a clinical setting,
we primarily work with adults with cognitive communication disorders, dementia, dysphagia, which is swallowing disorders, and and aphasia.
So strokes. So yeah,
all the things that you helped my dad with, yes, and all the things that you've helped Corey with, and just all the things. I'm telling you, when I'm always calling on them for something. So let's go back to like an academic setting.
Okay.
And we're talking about children because, of course, today our primary focus is on the little people.
Yes.
And there's something called an IEP. And some children have them and some children don't. And there's nothing wrong if you do have an IEP. I have 3 children. One of them, our oldest, had an IEP. The younger two, one, he's in the 2nd grade reading at the 5th grade level. He's not going to need it. And then I don't think Katie Pooh is going to. I don't think Katie Pooh's going to have an IEP.
No, because she's a grown woman.
I'm not sure what is going on. So, but Anthony did. And so let's talk about what an IEP is and that we don't do stigmas here.
Right.
So an IEP is an individualized education plan where we provide services for children. So you can also have what in Illinois we call resource, but you guys call it
resource.
And so that's where you get some kids get pulled out with a teacher who has been certified to teach like special education, so they may pull that student out for some academic pieces. But in terms of speech and language, I do a lot of pull out, sometimes push in, where I pull the kids out, work on articulation per their goals on their IEP. So that
we remember the goals.
An IEP, they have goals and objectives that we should write them. Whereas we look to see if the kid will meet that goal in a year's time. So an IEP is based on a year,
like an academic year.
An academic year, and then every 3 years that student is reevaluated.
Yes.
Yeah. And so those goals and objectives, so we have a goal which is very broad. Well, not very broad, but more broad. And then the objectives help us to attain that goal that we wrote, whatever.
Yeah. So the IEP ensures that all of the supports are in place for the student to achieve academic success. So the student, the parent, the teacher, the administrators, they all collaborate together to design this academic plan to ensure the success of the student. So.
And again, it's the academic year and the goals. So I remember the goals because sometimes the goals weren't met and you all were like, that is okay. Like he's going to meet those goals. And then sometimes he would smash them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, that's how we were discharged from his IEP because they were just like, there's just not, we just can't do nothing else with them. Like we give him a goal, he meets it. Like talk about an academic year in a quarter or less, and they were like, is that okay? And I'm like, they asked me if it was okay. And sometimes it's not okay for some people, but they don't know you very well because you've been praying for this day for a long time. And there's also something you all educated me on today, what's called a 504. Now, is that for older children only, or can that be for any child?
It can be for any child, usually elementary age, school age child. So kindergarten through 12th grade. Yeah, but that is usually handled by the administrator of the school. And it consists of modifications and accommodations as well.
So what are parents looking for? We want people to be educated and informed. And if you're not educated and licensed as a speech and language pathologist, it's just like being a doctor or anything else. You really don't know. So I know there have been a lot of videos. Well, do you know what an RSV cough sounds like? Like trying to educate people. What are parents looking for? It would, to me, because I am overly about everything and they know that for like 30 years, like an eyelash can fall out. And I'm like, Courtney, my eyelash fell out. So I pay really close attention. But if you have multiple children or you work really hard or it's just not something that you do for a living, you don't always understand. So what, as parents, should we be looking for that you would possibly say, oh, well, you know what, ma'am, your child needs to be evaluated, or you're talking to your family member or friend and you see something at the picnic and you're like, can say, Chatty, I think maybe we should say something. What are we looking for as parents to say, okay, this might be something that my child might have an issue with?
Usually parents can tell if there's something different with their child. But I would say look at how they're communicating, because children start communicating early on as babies. So if they're not showing any interest in people, they're showing more interest in objects versus interacting with people, like not making eye contact, not using gestures such as pointing to what they want, waving hi and bye, smiling, just doing those things that typical babies would do, babbling. If you say a word, are they imitating that word? Things like that.
Yeah.
Add to that.
Yeah. I think I would say also your pediatrician could be very helpful in those ages and stages of development. Like if you are a first-time parent and you just don't know, or you don't have any other children, you could also ask the pediatrician when you go in. I know that the pediatrician doesn't spend a lot of time with each family, but you could ask if there's something in your gut that's saying, communication seems off. I would definitely suggest to ask your pediatrician.
And usually they will give you like guidelines, like developmental guidelines.
Like the forms you would come for your 1 year, your 2 years, your child using 20 words or
like informational sheets that says, your child should be doing this at this age or this stage. So once again, if they're not responding to their name, that's a cause for concern. Following simple commands, things like that. But parents usually know.
Yeah, they usually have some type of intuition that something is just not quite right. And I would recommend being honest with the developmental checklist that you complete at the doctor's office, even though, because there is sometimes maybe a little hesitation to be, honest. But if your student or if your child needs help, the best time to get it is early. Early intervention
is key. And I would advise against,
please.
I would advise against the wait and see approach.
Yes.
Early intervention is key.
It is. And again, I can attest to that, because the moment I noticed it, I was calling. The moment I noticed it, I was trying to get him help. Like I said, he did birth to 3, which I knew nothing about. And then the school district at 3, took it over from 3 and 2. And then when he started in kindergarten, then that's when he was pulled out.
Yeah.
Or they pushed in. And I will say that our school district did an amazing job.
They did.
They really did. School District 90 in O'Fallon, Illinois. I mean, they did an outstanding job with Anthony.
I still remember, and I think we'll always remember and appreciate his, SLPs, because I was just like, I just have a special place in my heart now forever, because I don't think he would be as far as he is without them.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal.
Yes. And you all kept that check in balance. Well, what did they say and how did it go? And, well, this is where he should be. And I think they're doing a really good job. And that gave me the comfort that I needed, because, again, that's not what I'm trained and, licensed to do. So it was really good to have that additional support. But they really did an outstanding job with him. And now he talks your ears. You feel like they're going to bleed. I know you mentioned not being honest on your eval. And we mentioned just a few moments ago about the stigma. How do we combat that? How do we stop the wait and see? Because we feel like, oh, well, I don't want help, and we don't get help, and we don't do help in this family, we don't do help in this community. I don't want anybody to feel that my child is special. Like, how do we get past those feelings to get our children the help they need?
Just realizing that you're doing more harm to your child by being in denial and not accepting the fact that your child needs extra support. So just getting, yeah.
I'll say this too, like it's understandable that parents will have a hard time because no one wants something to be like wrong with their child. But when it comes to communication disorders and impairments and delays, the idea is, and the research says, the earlier you intervene, the better your prognosis, right? So you want to get in early and get that support, preferably in the 0 to 3 time frame, because that's when their brains are more elastic and they're growing. So I would imagine that it's a grieving process, but I would say sometimes you have to sacrifice what you feel for your child.
And then understanding that it's not your fault.
Yeah,
You did nothing to cause it. Children learn at different rates. They develop at different times. And you're still a good mom. You're still a good dad. Your child just needs a little extra help, and you did nothing to cause this. So just understanding that it's not anyone's fault that your child needs extra help.
That's awesome because, like I said, having lived it, having walked that walk for so many years, it is not easy. And I know that I'm the person that runs to the doctor for anything. So it was nothing for me. And then to know, like you said, that I had a healthy pregnancy. I took my vitamins. I went to every appointment. I was young, even though later I was real old having kids, but it's not easy, but the support is very helpful. So his service providers were very supportive. You all were very supportive. And I think if we could keep that type of support going in the community and in that SLP and, IEP community, that's going to be very helpful for people. And then knowing somebody that's been through it, right? Like your testimony is critical because I can tell somebody else, oh, trust me, she's a baby, she's whatever. These are the types of things that we did. I tell people, I'd be like, Christy, can such and such call me? And they're like, yes, she can call me to help, guide, because again, we don't know. And it is difficult because you don't know if it's going to change.
Right.
You don't know when it's going to change, if it does. And then you have to walk that out with your child. And I can't tell you, how many times I cried because I wasn't sure, what his future was going to be, what it was going to be like. And thankfully, our testimony is, now that's, we've gotten through that, we developed through that, and now we're on the other side. That's not everybody's story. But again, to be able to have that community of people that you can talk to and share your story with is very helpful because you don't want to delay. You don't. And I can certainly see how, had I never, not that you all would have ever allowed it, but if I had said, I'm not going to get him help, or I waited to junior high school to get him help instead of, at 2, when it became glaring, I don't know where Anthony would be right now.
Right.
And that's not, you don't want to look back in regret thinking, oh, I didn't do everything that I could to help my child. And the services, are through statute, state statute, federal statute, through your school district. So there's not a lot of reason not to, because obviously you don't want money to be an issue for someone to get the help that they need. So to know that you can get it through your school district and they are obligated, by law to make sure that your child succeeds is, it's very helpful to know those types of things. So what is the biggest challenge that you all face as SLPs as we close out, and how do you all like push through those challenges? I mean, 19 years, like y'all coming up on y'all deuce in a minute. There had to have been, oh, well, this really makes my job hard, or, that's why I transitioned to an academic setting over this because, of the challenges or just the things that didn't work out the way that I felt that they should. Like, what have you all seen? Because you've seen a lot in 20 years.
I would say possibly advocating for Black and brown children to get this free and appropriate education that they are entitled to. Sometimes depending on like I'll say environment, sometimes disorders with our children maybe come off as bad behavior. And so a lot of our children maybe, instead of looking at this child as a whole, it's just like, oh, this is bad behavior. But bad behavior is also communication. And so I think that is my biggest struggle. That's what sometimes, I go home at night and cry about. Or it wakes me up in the middle of the night because our kids are being put in specialized behavior programs when they're not looked at as a whole child. Also dyslexia, kids who or people who have difficulty learning to read and reading. With us, I'm seeing that it's just like, oh, they're just dumb, basically. That is the idea, when they're not even looking to see if there is a language-based reading disorder there. So it hurts.
Yes, I would agree.
That is the most challenging for me.
I would agree with that as well. We talk about that all
the whole time.
Yeah. On a weekly basis. Yeah. She vent to me and I vent to her. Yeah, it's ongoing.
And it's an ongoing fight.
It is.
So it's the advocacy. I love that. I think all four of us are advocates in our own lanes, whether it's speech and language and advocating for children and education, whether it's advocating for women and cancer patients, whether it's advocating for people in the criminal justice system. Advocacy is key, and it takes people who care, like you, like Kanisha and like myself, to keep fighting the good fight. Like, that's why this platform even exists, to be able to advocate and provide information to women of color and communities of color so we can live our best lives, because for so long we haven't, and it's been swept under rugs and, whatever. We haven't been given the best of what we deserve as humans, which is what everybody deserves. I don't care how young or old, rich or poor, what color you are, you deserve to live your best life. And that includes education, shelter, healthcare, food, all of those things. And for so long, people have, particularly communities of colors, have been marginalized and not given what we need, and the advocacy hasn't been there. So it's wonderful to see a whole generation of us rising up to advocate. So then that way, hopefully Christian and Piper and Anthony and Jacob and John and, Jordy Pooh don't have to deal with so many of the disparities that children and people of color deal with now. And I think you all are just amazing. I already know that. Like, you all are just phenomenal. And I just love the fact that children in Northern Illinois and Missouri and everywhere in between have people like the two of you to be able to say, this is what needs to be done, and I'm going to keep fighting for these kids.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Will you all come back?
Yeah, of course.
Only for you.
They're going to come back, Chris. So I'm thinking maybe like we can talk about relationships and girlfriendships, because 30 years and we still together.
And we still look good.
And yes, we do and do. So I think that would be a wonderful episode for us to sit down and just talk about, the love and just Black women sticking together and stand together and supporting each other. So, but y'all already know that this ain't gonna never stop. We together till the caskets drop, honey. That's just what it is. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so happy we were able to finally match schedules with our children who are all over the place. And I just love y'all.
Love you too.
And we love you.
Yes. And thank you for tuning in today to Pros of Politics Podcast, where we are polished and poised for greatness and impact. Please join us again next week. And in the meantime, please like, love, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next week.